was affected by these weapons. And I guess they had me targeted for a while because they were preparing me for this mission from afar. And then when they met me, it was kind of like, I think, it just didn't go to their plan that I would refuse to go and that I would break free. So, I mean, I'm still very vulnerable in a lot of ways, but, I did break free. And but it was very manipulative, very powerful. And, they did their best to try and, keep me with it. And because I was not allowed to see him anymore because he had death threats and they were threatening to kidnap me. And I mean, I don't know how severe, maybe I think they were trying to be friendly to me. They didn't want to scare me, but it's like, you have to come basically, or we're going to take you. And, some of them that were in that group later on, after I broke the story, started to communicate with me to help me understand what I had been through and what these agendas were about. But it connects to Alternative 3 and the off-planet colonies and underground bases and basically protecting the human genome. But it's much more sinister than that because it also connects to the New World Order and a plan to depopulate and to hide away and then possibly come back. And so I just wanted nothing to do with it. And my mission really is to just be here for humanity and help us through this shift. Even if I don't survive it, it doesn't matter because it's not about life or death. It's about what are we going to incarnate to next. And we need to protect this planet. And I really, I just have no desire to be on Mars, whether they were protecting me or had some plan for me that was very harmful. I just knew that many of them were harmful people and were misusing technologies. And they are well known for a lot of negative things, but it's a mixed bag as well. This group has all sorts of people, and it is a branch of the secret government.
Mm. I just want to say for the audience, if this is blowing your mind, after the show, take time and do research in what she's saying. Don't believe anything we say. Do your own research. And if you really sit down and don't be an armchair researcher, you'll find that what she's saying really, you start finding some really funny things that, you start saying, oh, is that a coincidence?
There's I can't remember the guy's name, Skipper has a Mars website. Just do some research on Mars. Some of the photographs from there are undeniable structures. I mean, there's forests and water and all sorts of shit that you just cannot see or they don't tell you about. But if you actually do the research and look out there, it's all out on the web. So.
Yeah, and there's, I have witnesses for my first article, and, people can really have a hard time swallowing this when they first hear it. But yes, I mean, do your research and, yes, question, be a skeptic. And feel free to, I don't know if you have call-in or anything, but, oh, no, because it's, okay. But I mean, my point is, yeah, really do your research because, what I'm saying is backed up and there's other whistleblowers. There's the Area 51 whistleblowers. There's my colleague Andrew Bashago, who teleported to Mars. And there's, of course, David Wilcock that talks about jump room to Mars. And, there's just so many dots that are connecting. And, I mean, we could spend the next 2 years being skeptical, or we can just, really just do the research and understand, okay, here's a reality. Now, what are we going to do with it? Rather than, waste our time just saying, oh, that sounds too crazy to be true. Let's just not even go there. I would say it's worth understanding and being aware of because this involves our human future.
Exactly.
Yeah. So this, I don't know what to call it because it is a war, but it's not a war you're fighting with your hands or a gun or anything. It's not even a psychological. 'Cause there's definitely been times that, in my own case, and then I'll ask you about this, where you're sleeping and an entity will come to you and they give you information, but it's not. For example, I'll give you a quick story. So I had an entity come to me, and telepathically, I can hear the entity telling me that not all white light is good white light. That they use that white light as a cover. But I can feel from the entity that what he was saying was true, but at the same time, he was saying in a way to confuse me. So then I'll push away everything.
Yeah, the thing is, yep.
No, I was just gonna say, have you had things like that where they completely try to confuse you and lead you down the wrong path?
Well, I haven't really, I just, as far as entities go, I mean, I was just kind of dealing with the humans who were having agreements and agendas with these ET races. I didn't have any approach me as far as ET races. My partner, though, who, like I said, I found out was sent to find me, was in communication with what he called the patrons, and it seemed to be, in this case, artificial telepathy through a chip. And this is the thing, they, either have reverse engineered ET technologies or they're using alien technologies. About 70% of what goes on as far as ET activity is from man and their use of these through these exchanges of technology and information. And the rest of it, 30%, is real true ET contact. So I didn't get a sense that he was having real contact. I've had my own contacts when I was a child, but when I was dealing with this program, I was dealing with him, and it seemed to be that he was getting false information about this Mars mission. He was communicating telepathically with something that seemed to be manipulated and somehow connected to humans and their agendas to carry out a particular plan, and that it wasn't necessarily direct contact. And if it was, fine, but it was still a part of the same agreement. And it seemed to be lower races that really want to control us, not help us return to source or our divine nature. So yes, they're very manipulative, and they were manipulating him. And I just, it seemed to be that he was getting a transmission that wasn't even genuine from even an ET race. But I can't say that for sure,
Yeah. So for anybody who might be going through the same thing or might be getting manipulated, what are some of the key things, that red flags to look out for? That for you personally, you were like, hey, that doesn't seem right.
The key things to look out for is, just do you really want this experience, and how are you treated? I mean, how do you feel? I mean, do you feel fear? Do you feel like you're being downloaded information that is trying to control you? Do you feel, that it's kind of, I mean, you just have to, I guess all I can say is you have to feel into it. You have to have a boundary, and, just never not lose your own truth, and don't just take information and adopt it just because somebody's sending you information, or whether it's an ET race, whether it's artificial telepathy, whether it's through a chip, it doesn't matter. Question everything that you're experiencing. Usually the higher races, make one feel very comfortable and safe, and it's a very profound experience. But those can also be masked as being negative as well. So I would just suggest to people that they do their research about how to protect themselves, whether it's orgone or rare earth magnets, and just to, really shield themselves with white light or golden light and connect to Christ Sophia consciousness, and just, just have a boundary, and just don't lose yourself to anything, and just, yeah, I mean, I think that the most important thing is that we don't allow ourselves to be controlled on any level, particularly on a mind level, because that's their thing, is mind control. So you have to question, no matter what they're saying to you. You can't just adopt it as truth. You can share the experience and say, this is what I heard, but the minute you start to lose yourself and determine that this is the reality, it's very important to question it. And that's why the Christ Sophia message is so important, because it's coming from a very clear, strong stream of energy that doesn't have any programs or any mind controls. It's very much about awakening. So anything that's really assisting us is helping us to awaken. It's not telling us what to do or how to do it, or normally doesn't really tell us, what our future holds, and gives us predictions and fear scenarios and things and warnings. That usually what the positive races and the positive experiences are about empowerment and about guiding us and helping us really step into who we really are. Knowing that the future is something we're creating, and the most powerful place is starting right now. And so be wary of future predictions. I would look out for that as well, because UFOs and ETs are time travelers, and many of them come back as, the future self is their ET self, and they're coming back to really implement agendas that will allow them domination, will allow them immortality through technology, because they can't sustain immortality in their own nature, because they're not a positive being. They're not radiating the love of source, or God, goddess, or whatever. The only way that they can stay alive is through technology, and the only way that they can dominate and prevail is by dumbing us down so that we're not in our divine power, because when we step into our power, it sort of eliminates them, kind of like an immune system that wipes out a parasite. Yeah. So we really, our purpose, I mean, the most important thing is that we're empowered, and that we, understand who we are, and we're very careful about, believing anything otherwise than, what's really going on in the inside, what we're truly made of, not what something tells us we are, where we should go, or what we should do. The positive races don't interfere with free will. They just, will intervene and assist with us cleaning up the planet and restoring it, but they don't tend to want to interfere with free will. So that's another sign. If something's trying to tell you what to do, be careful.
Yeah. Tom?
Yeah, so we've got a lot of, go back to the time traveler things. I don't know if I'll spit this out right or not. I kind of saw a picture in my head where if you've got a race that's coming back and trying to tell us what to manipulate events to create a certain outcome for themselves, are they trying to change their own future? Or because if you're from the future, then you're already living on one timeline. So are they trying to manipulate things to change the timeline that they are currently on?
Well, I mean, it's kind of like that's the only way they can reincarnate. From this point on, it's like the ET races that have worked with the government. Some of them, they're 52,000 years into the future. And so they come back and they're trying to regenerate and heal their degenerate bodies. And that's why they clone. That's why they, do experiments. That's why they abduct, is to get our genetic information, because they're trying to restore themselves. Because their future self on that particular timeline is degenerating. It can't live past 52,000 years because they die out. So to avoid dying out, they come back and sort of do this recycling process. And that's sort of like their cycle of reincarnation, is to time travel back and to kind of assist their race in eventually being able to, harness whatever they get and restore their future as immortal beings, but based on technology, based on cloning, based on very invasive ways to get, information. And, I don't know if, they can even be that successful, but this is where the threat of like green technologies, genetic engineering, and the cyborg sort of robotic world, and the creating a master race is where, we're kind of in trouble, because they can download themselves into other bodies, and particularly the reptilians use bodies as hosts. The Greys, there are a few different types of species. Some are able to reproduce and others aren't. And so even though they can time travel, the timelines have been messed with a lot because they reverse engineered looking glass technologies, which are from Sumerian times, and that allows them to see in the past and in the future, at least the humans. And so when you have that kind of information, you end up sort of trying to play God, and then you end up, doing all sorts of things in a self-serving way because self-preservation is their goal, and they don't realize really what they're screwing with. And so, they're just trying to protect, it's about self-preservation. So their future self has to come back because they die out otherwise.
So the problem I see here was if the way they're manipulating and guiding things right now, and I don't know if this is all them, and maybe that's why it's not making sense to me. The way the world's being steered right now is a spiral of self-destruction on the material plane. There is a growing element of people who are actually waking up and combating this, but if you left it all to the darker side of things, we would be, destroying the whole planet and the whole human race, and they wouldn't have their genetics to grab anymore.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't make any. Well, it kind of reminds me of. It's a very self-destructive path that it seems that they're on, because you would think after doing this several times that you'd be like, maybe this is not working. Maybe we should try something different. Well,
this is where we have to realize how weak it all is, and that, as threatening and as upsetting as it feels, these are inorganic beings. They function. They weren't created from source love. They're kind of like fragments of a distorted thought form. They're just kind of like parasites. It's like, how does cancer try and invade a body? When we look at the Gaia organism, we're dealing with, this race of beings that's time traveling, but in a sense, it's no different than like the cells in our body that are trying to attack us and give us diseases. They have a strong will. They don't care about the organism that they're attacking.